Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also happens to host his own fantastic show, The Rational Egoist, where you too can learn about rational egoism through his multiple interviews and debates with folks that I think make us as a capitalist community, as a freedom-loving community, as rational egoists, much better. Michael, how is The Rational Egoist going? Please tell us any new shows on the docket.
We are fashionably late. Let me just say that first. So I still have the Jim Valiant episode up, all about logical fallacies. Next Monday, though, I have an interview that I'm really, really looking forward to. I'm interviewing an economist named Don Boudreaux, and I actually sent you an article that he wrote. It's in the queue for today. I've been reading this guy for a long time. He actually is the person who wrote the article that first introduced me to the idea that federal immigration laws were unconstitutional. I'm very excited to be interviewing him next week, and I cannot wait to get that episode up.
So since I didn't look at who was necessarily authoring the articles, tell me which article it was that you
one about H.L. Mencken.
Love
the Sage of Baltimore.
Very quotable stuff in there. I think we're going to take some stuff verbatim out of that because I wish H.L. Mencken was alive today. Because
I do too. I also am going to ambush you with a request that you come on my show sometime soon. So I might as well just do that now. Maybe that'll add a little pressure to the whole situation.
I would love to do that. Manu, I just want you to know that I have received a report from my representatives that there is now a warning in place for all tourists and people going into Brazil that there is a high instance of kidnapping foreigners. I want you to know, however, that this is not frightening me from Sao Paulo. If I am not working on those days, I will be in Sao Paulo, kidnappers or no, because I'll put a serious hurt on them if they try to fuck with my dog. That's all I got to say.
Michael, where did we go with this? How did we get there from?
As Manu was saying, we were late, and it just reminded me of what was going on in Brazil right now. And I promised Manu I'd get Manu into this convention. Bring her in as a guest.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I stand corrected.
There was some kind of international warning going on for tourists, which of course I am not nervous about that. Anyway, look, I have to give the traditional disclaimer that we are not representing the American Capitalist Party at the moment. Some of the things we say will be in alignment with our policies. If you want to know what those policies are, please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Otherwise, we are giving our own opinions, which are oftentimes in alignment and oftentimes in disagreement with each other. Not oftentimes, but sometimes in disagreement with each other. So it makes for stimulating conversation, which I usually win. No, I'm joking. I think Michael usually wins. But anyway, Michael, you did a tweet that we want to talk about. So talk about this tweet.
Okay. So yesterday or 2 days ago, I have this Jeremy Kauffman. I don't even know if I follow him, but I debated him before on Larry Sharp's show.
Is he a libertarian?
Well, that's the question. That's actually the question that I asked on X. Is he a libertarian? So the funny thing was, I asked the question not expecting much. I just said, hey, for my libertarian friends out there, is Jeremy Kauffman a libertarian? Now, he posts a lot of bigoted, racist, nationalistic stuff, that type of shit. So I posted this. Last time I checked, it got 96,000 views. That's far more views than I've ever gotten before for such a simple question. So I found that interesting. But also what was interesting is one of the reasons I stopped calling myself a libertarian was because of the posting that was coming out of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which is run by Jeremy Kauffman. So the interesting thing was, of course, I got the litany of people who thought they were going to shame me by telling me I'm a criminal or whatever. They post my case as if I won't do the same thing. That 90% of them get it wrong anyway. And they say, oh, you're trying to gatekeep libertarianism. And then on the other side, somebody said, he's not a libertarian. You're just basically being cute, was the suggestion. And the interesting thing is the idea was that I'm not accepting Jeremy Kauffman because he's not a libertarian. The truth of the matter is I don't accept libertarianism because Jeremy Kauffman is a libertarian. So I've been getting into some interesting arguments here. And I said, look, the term has literally lost meaning. There's nothing to differentiate it. There's no basis on which to separate it from anything else. So if this guy claims to be a libertarian, there's no way to tell him he's not. It's basically become anybody who claims to be a libertarian is one.
And Reese Jacobson says it. Well, you might want to highlight his comment here. Defining libertarianism is like nailing Jello to a wall.
Yes. Reese ought to give credit for that because he stole it from me, who stole it from Greg Lewis, who stole it from somebody else. But
all right, so we're getting fourth hand, but it's still a good comment.
Yes, no, it's not the libertarian stuff. It's the analogy of nailing Jello to a wall, although it's normally Jello to a tree. So Reese has switched it up just a little bit. But no, he's actually correct. So some people will say, well, you define libertarianism by adherence to the non-aggression principle. Really? Because the term predates the non-aggression principle, the idea of the non-aggression principle. So that can't be it. So my point to these guys is there's simply no genus in differentia to the word. So one guy says to me, well, then wouldn't the same be true of objectivism? No, objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand. It's very simple. I go and I see this is objectivism. So then another guy said, well, if a bunch of postmodernists took over, and started calling themselves objectivism, would that make it non-objectivism? And I told them, well, I'd stop calling myself one. If that were the case, if objectivism became so corrupted that it could be confused with postmodernism, then there's no reason for me to call myself that any longer. But the fact of the matter is and I also stated, by the way, I've seen signs that could happen. I've seen people identify as objectivists who are not in the tradition of Ayn Rand, not even close. But ultimately, the point is, with objectivism, we have a distinct philosophy that we can look to decide what it is and what it isn't. With libertarianism, you simply do not have that. So it was a great discussion. I had a lot of interesting things going on there, and I'm sure I'll have some more. So if anybody's interested in that conversation, they could go check. Jim Valiant's in the audience, so that's wonderful. And now
you should probably repost that. You should probably repost that on Twitter so that everybody could see it.
It's already there. How much? I reposted it already.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. It's in there right now. All you got to do is go to my feed. That's what's predominating.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm glad for this.
You would know that if you ever actually checked out my feed on X.
It's like I don't have too much to do. I already spend a little bit too much time on Twitter, and I've been scaling back quite a bit because I'm busy doing research and stuff.
Good.
And it makes me much happier not to be on Twitter. To be honest with you, Twitter has become utterly and totally toxic. It is almost without value, I have to say. If it weren't for some of the few people, many of whom are in this chat, that I met through Twitter, Twitter would be nearly useless with me. Deeper with Diego says, objectivism will always be objectivism, regardless of a consensus. A consensus does not define concepts. Objectivism is clearly defined, and by the works of Ayn Rand, that's based in reality.
That's true. Here's the problem. But there's two problems with that. One, Ayn Rand specifically did not want people to identify as objectivists because she said they should identify as students, because she did not want to get her philosophy corrupted. And if it gets to the point where it's so corrupt that just everybody's identifying, then you telling somebody you're an objectivist means nothing. You're not going to be conveying anything to them. And if the point of communication of that sort is persuasion, you're going to have a difficult time persuading somebody if you've already lost them by telling them what you are, if they're not understanding it. But this, once again, discussing philosophy, lost us all our viewers. So maybe we should take
how do you know it? When you literally see the numbers go down when we actually...
Oh, you don't see it?
Deep things? No, I don't see the numbers.
Oh, yeah, I get the number.
To me, the conversation gets super interesting. And
I agree, but it doesn't matter what you and I find interesting. When we have a show, I mean,
they want fart jokes. They want fart jokes.
That's not
they
true.
Want conflict between you and I and James Valiant. That's what they want.
That's good. I mean, yes, they do want the conflict, but I think what most people want, and this is a problem, and we could get into this a little bit before we get into our stories. I once, okay, so Rand called Peikoff an objectivist, yes, but I guarantee you she never called me one. So it's a bit different. Okay, so here's the problem with this. I used to write a lot of op-eds about the prison system and trying to change it. The prison system wasn't hot in the media, and a journalist friend of mine told me that there's two things. He said there's timely pieces and timeless pieces. A timely piece are basically concrete stories that are relevant right now, right? Whereas timeless can be written at any time. And that's what this kind of reminds me of, is people want to be drowned in concretes. They want to know the current events, what's happening. The problem with that is if all you do is flood the zone with concretes, you have no basis by which to analyze those concretes. You need to have the abstract philosophy in order to judge and assess the concretes that you're looking at. But, we do need an audience. So I guess I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Let's just do what we want. And if the audience likes it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. I don't
Look,
know.
Leonard Peikoff at one time had a radio show that went for about an hour. Then it became syndicated faster than I think any radio show had ever become nationally syndicated, and went for almost 2 or 3 hours, if I remember. I used to listen to that thing every day. I thought it was the best radio show on radio. Now, the reason he quit, it took too much time to prepare a philosophically oriented show with the kind of depth that Peikoff really brought to each and every show. I mean, we have time here to read articles really quickly and give you sort of a thumbnail sketch. Peikoff would take hours and hours and hours and hours preparing shows, to such a degree that I remember when Bugliosi wrote his book about the O.J. Simpson trial. He went on every single conservative radio station there was, and he gave the same basic canned answers to the same basic canned questions. And then he went on the Leonard Peikoff show, and for the first time I heard the undefeated prosecutor, the greatest prosecutor in American history, stumped, and it wasn't intentional. It was that Peikoff was asking him philosophical questions that the man simply could not answer. For the first time in 30 interviews, I heard the guy stumble. Now, it wasn't, there are people who want to, in the media, who want to get gotcha questions on people. That wasn't Peikoff's intention at all. He wanted to make a deep show, and he made that interview much deeper. I respect him for that. I wish he had the energy to have continued, because I think he would have brought up the discourse in talk radio, which, of course, all the discourse across all the mediums is starting to flop into the ridiculous. Something happened yesterday at the White House. Zelenskyy came by for a visit with Trump. It was highly advertised in the press, as Trump likes to put himself in the forefront of the media. And then they had a meeting with pretty much all of the European powers, all of the NATO powers, where they sat down together to come to some form of agreement with respect to what to do about Ukraine and Russia. Let me ask you your takeaway from this, because you sent me an article on the 6 takeaways. My dear, thank you very much. My wife just brought me a cup of decaf. I love her very much. She's awesome. So what was your takeaway from this? Because the Epoch Times had 6 takeaways that I don't think were takeaways at all, to be honest with you. I have my own opinions about this entire thing, but I want to get yours before I throw my hat in this arena.
I really hate talking about foreign policy because, first of all, it's not my specialty. It's not, and it's a very complex thing. But this isn't very complex. The part of it that interests me, anyway, is not very complex. It's that the people that went. I was listening to this show, The Daily, today. It's a podcast put out by the New York Times. And they talked about how people have learned now how to negotiate with Trump. And they basically just go in there and agree with him to find a point of agreement. And
they have to praise him first.
Now,
all the great things he's doing. Right.
So one of the things they pointed out, for instance, was Zelenskyy now wore kind of a suit when he went. And, the reporter complimented him on the suit, and Trump complimented him on the suit. Now, part of it makes me lose a little bit of respect for Zelenskyy, to be perfectly honest with you. But
really,
yeah, it does. But ultimately,
we'll talk about that at the end, because I do want to get your feelings on that.
Sure. So, but ultimately, when people learn you have a tell like that, like it's in poker, they know when you have the cards or don't. They know what to do. And I don't see how Trump doesn't get played. He goes from no, we have to have a ceasefire to no, we don't need a ceasefire to back again. No, we don't need a ceasefire. I mean, I don't know what he's even planning. And I remember years ago when he was running for office, somebody said basically Trump's message is elect me. You never know what the hell I'm going to do. And that's the only governing principle here seems to be who is ever willing to kiss his big orange ass. And that's just not good. And I don't have to be a foreign policy expert to know that.
Exactly. So, yeah, let's talk about the 6 takeaways according to the Epoch Times. For people who don't know the Epoch Times, it is a largely conservative newspaper. Now, they generally do report the news without bias, but in this case, it's trying to put a shine on something that really deserves no shine. Because what's happening in Washington right now, with all of those folks from NATO, is largely performative. There's really nothing to talk about. Putin is still leading the charge. He's taking Trump by the nose and leading him around and getting pretty much exactly what he wants. And the exercises and compliments aside, Putin's winning the negotiation right now. So they claim there's a breakthrough, and this is one of the takeaways, that there's breakthroughs in security guarantees. Well, there were security guarantees before that nobody really honored. The Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons, right, as a point to maintain peace with Russia. That nuclear arsenal, I believe, went to Russia. They were completely disarmed in the face of a clear potential Russian threat, with the promise of European and American-backed security, which did not really happen.
You're going to make me argue with you, this is not the topic I really want to argue about, but that's not what the agreement said. The agreement said that Europe and America would defend him should they be threatened with nuclear weapons, which they are not being threatened with nuclear weapons.
That's true, but there was also the implicit agreement, probably in the minds of the Ukrainians, was that there was an agreement of some form of security defense, which is not happening. And of course, there has been a threat on the part of Putin to use nuclear weapons against.
He's not employing nuclear weapons against them.
He's not employing them, but he has threatened to use them.
If we get involved, that's a different story. You don't get the threat. Yeah, if we, I forgot. He put the
What's that?
I'm reading Diego now. I forgot what the hell I was saying. Now just proceed.
Yeah. So anyway, there's apparently security breakthroughs with respect to what NATO is supposed to do to help the Ukraine. But of course, there's the tacit agreement that they will not go into NATO, which is what Putin wants. Although there will be these backdoor security agreements that I don't think that the Europeans will necessarily follow. They're right now they're vague. They're not in place. They're just like Trump's trade deals. They're deals that are about to happen, and they're going to happen. I swear to God they are, but they're just not there yet. Of course, the second takeaway from this is that the meeting between Zelenskyy and Trump was friendlier than last time. Apparently, Zelenskyy has been tutored by somebody in how to deal with Trump, which means basically you have to swallow your pride, put your tail between your legs, and pretend like Trump is the alpha dog in the room and praise everything that he does because his ego is so fragile. I want to remind everybody, season 27 of South Park will give you a great deal of joy. You're acting like that's a non sequitur, but because of his insecurity and need for praise, I think people will see it highlighted.
No, but you keep sending people to want to watch this big orange guy naked, and I just find it a little strange, especially given that Trey Parker and co. are not promoting the Capitalist Corner on their program.
They're not promoting the Capitalist Corner on their program, but they surely will. So the meeting was friendlier this time. Melania Trump sent a nice letter to Putin,
right,
praying that he will have mercy on children, which he is actually targeting with drones on purpose. I doubt that. I actually think Putin probably laughed at that letter, to be honest with you, and considered it morally naive. and that it didn't touch him. But the Americans continue to try to find the better side of Putin's nature, which does not exist. And you know who knew it didn't exist? George Bush said he looked right into the eyes of the man and saw no soul.
Oh my goodness, Mark, stop.
It's true.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. That's what they say.
No, yeah, George Bush said I saw his soul, but he didn't say it in a bad way.
No, he said. I thought he said he saw no soul.
No. He said I looked into his eyes and saw his soul.
You're saying that he saw his soul as if something existed there.
Yes, because John McCain retorted, I looked into his eyes and saw a K, a G, and a B.
Wow, so I've been misinformed all this time that it was George Bush who had.
And now you're trying to misinform me.
Well, I can't misinform you now because you
can.
George Bush thought that a reptilian being, an actual reptile, had a soul. I don't believe it. That's too naive for me to believe, even for President Bush. The ceasefire is no longer a prerequisite for a peace talk. This is apparently a takeaway. I don't think it's a breakthrough. But Trump has, of course, gone back on his obligation to be a ceasefire because he wants the killing to stop. Who doesn't want the killing to stop? I don't think appeasing Putin is the way to make the killing stop. Appeasement has never been the way to make conflict, to make less conflict. It usually makes more conflict. 4, there has been the proposal of territorial swaps. Now, Michael, does swap imply to you a mutual sort of agreement, like one party's getting territory, another party's getting territory?
That's what I would think, but that's not what I think here it actually means. I think the swap is actually going to be here. We won't take this part of your land if you. We'll let you keep this.
It's one-sided. It's one-sided. They get the Crimea, and the Donbass. They make Russia the language of those areas, the official language of those areas, and Ukraine gets fuck all. From
Okay, I got the exact quote from W. You ready?
Go ahead, tell it to me.
After
you're going to make me esteem W even less than I already do.
That's fine, but the quote, it says here, in June 2001, after meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin for the first time at a summit in Slovenia, U.S. President George W. Bush famously said, I looked the man in the eye. I found him to be very straightforward and trustworthy. We had a very good dialogue. I was able to get a sense of his soul.
You are kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you.
My God.
And now you're bringing him into things.
Well, apparently George Bush did too. Look, trilateral meeting gains traction. So apparently there's going to be a meeting between the representatives.
I don't think so, though, because Zelenskyy is saying that there's no talks until there's a ceasefire, and Putin's saying there's no ceasefire.
Correct. Well, they're claiming that now the representatives, this doesn't mean that Putin's going to get in a room with Zelenskyy. It means that representatives of Zelenskyy and representatives of Putin are going to get in a room with the representatives of the United States of America, and they're going to talk, and nothing is going to be solved because this is an intractable issue. Literally.
Maybe they'll watch South Park together.
If they watch South Park together, well, they probably will watch South Park together. But this is an intractable issue. I mean, there has to be a ceasefire. I think there has to be a whole different way of dealing with this problem, to be honest with you. I think my way of dealing with it is the opposite of your way of dealing with it, perhaps. But you certainly have to have the threat of violence with somebody who's a violent man. And you cannot make him, and you can't talk to him. You can't negotiate with him. You can't make him think you're going to negotiate with him. You can't use diplomacy. You have to just say, here's the deal. Here's the ultimatum. Here's the line in the sand. You've crossed it. This is it. It's over. Trump has done that maybe 4 or 5 times, and he keeps moving the line in the sand. So he's proven himself not to be the tough guy that all the MAGA people think he is. He just throws things out there to get reactions. But there's no substance behind it. There's never any. The threat is an empty threat. There's nothing behind it. So also, this was a rare assembly of European leaders in the White House. So this is a historical time when everybody got together and basically complimented Trump on his suit and his taste.
And here is what Gary Menard says about this.
Zelenskyy has to put the survival of Ukraine first. No shame of groveling for this country. Now, look, I am sort of in sympathy with that, and you're going to have to tell me why that is wrong, because he is actually standing for a people who are being viciously assaulted by the Russian army right now, and he's willing to do almost anything to help them out, which to a degree I understand. He's not giving up principle. His principle is the survival of his country. The principle is the self-defense of his country. And if wearing a suit is what he has to do to get Trump to send weapons, to sell weapons through NATO to him, then he's doing it. And you have an issue with that, though. Tell me what the issue is.
Simple question for you and for Gary. Does appeasement work? When dealing with tyrants, does appeasement work?
No.
Well, if you don't think appeasement
but he's not
works,
appeasing Putin. He's trying.
No, hold on. I didn't say does appeasing Putin work. I didn't say does appeasing Putin work. I asked you specifically, does appeasement work? Does appeasing tyrants work?
No.
Okay,
No.
then why would it work with Trump?
Well, you've said, as you spent the first half of this conversation talking about everybody. He's got a tell now. Everybody works on that tell, and when they start using it, when they start actually complimenting it, they get what they want.
Oh, well, no. Not necessarily. What they get is coming out of that particular meeting, he will say what they want to hear until the next groveler comes along. But you also have this.
If somebody tops that groveler.
Yes. Not only that, but the world is watching. Putin is watching.
Yes, he is.
So how does Putin judge Zelenskyy when he sees this is a man who was brought into the White House last time, berated, belittled, mocked for not wearing a suit?
I don't think he sees Zelenskyy that way. I think he sees Trump as the.
He does, but what
Trump
does he think? What does he think of Zelenskyy as the guy who will go in and change his attire just to appease Trump? That's
something to consider, but I would.
Yes,
I look at that as a sort of a heroic thing since he's trying to save his people.
But here we're not just talking about you're talking about the sort of realpolitik, the global implications. But what does it tell me? I mean, would you do that?
No,
I would respect it more if Zelenskyy just went in and said, "Listen, Mr. Trump, I am at your mercy." Right, I am at your mercy.
Did say that.
I need you. But if he would even said, "Look, I wore the suit for that purpose," right? Because ultimately, I need it. I need what you have.
He did say that
because they said to him what they said.
He did say stuff like, "We need."
No, he said, "I need all this stuff." They asked him, "What do you need?" And he said, "I need everything." That was in relation to a question from a reporter. I'm just saying that in my opinion, my approach would be, first of all, I don't know what I would have to do if I was dealing with somebody like Trump. My preference would just be
your preference would be not to deal with him, but you have to.
But Zelenskyy has to.
I guess right now he's in a clusterfuck.
So I would, just be straightforward with them. Listen, my country needs you. I need you. I am at your mercy. Just be there, because there's something that I respect about the honesty of it, right? It's this appeasing that they do to him. And Zelenskyy is not the only one, by the way. It's the entire Republican Party, or damn near the entire Republican Party does.
The European Union and all of NATO, everybody was doing the same thing.
And it's just not something that I respect. I just don't. I respect people who stand on principle and who act accordingly. And I think that while in the short run, you may achieve your ends behaving like that, in the long run, you don't. It reminds me of, there's this great story in the Talmud, and Jim Valiant, if he's still in the audience, can maybe chime in about it.
I want Jim to chime in on this. So what he thinks about wearing the suit, and what he thinks about the particular kind of.
So, but let me just tell you about the fox and the fish, right? So the fish are in the water, and they keep getting eaten by the fox. Some of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are getting eaten by the fox. And one of the fish says to another fish, "Hey, we're in this water, we keep getting eaten by the fox. We should get out of the water." And the other fish says, "Look, if we can't survive in the water, what the hell chance do you think we have to survive out of the water?" And my point is, if you can't do this being principled, then how can you expect to do it being unprincipled?
Gary Menard says something that I think is very interesting food for thought here. He says, with a first-handed tyrant, it probably wouldn't work. So certainly not with a guy like Putin, who is a first-handed tyrant. But with the fact that of the demonstrable praise-needy psychology of Trump, it certainly could work. So the fact that it works,
first of all, I would say there's no such thing as a first-handed tyrant. That's the first thing I would say. You're talking about a non-existent animal. Immediately when I saw that, the first person that came to my mind was Gail Wyman, and the discussion he had with Howard Rourke. And Howard Rourke said the worst kind of second-hander is the person who wants power over others. So that is true. But
I think what he's meaning in this sense is the sense that Putin is moved by a certain idea. He's certainly moved by power over others, but he's not moved by anything else but that. And his principles are applicable to the acquisition of power over others. So he's not moved by rhetoric. He's not moved, but he has a goal. What he wants to achieve, and nothing will take him off of that goal. Certainly not compliments. I think he's immune to all of that. So in that sense, he doesn't care what you think. He's a malignant narcissist in that sense. Like, Trump is a different kind of malignant narcissist. He's got such a fractured personality that he has a need for praise and a need for publicity. Putin is more like that underground mafia guy who doesn't necessarily like the limelight. He operates underneath. He's completely vicious, completely without scruples, and his only goal is to satisfy his want. And in that respect, he doesn't give a shit what anybody else thinks about him.
Okay, this is the thing. And this is one of the problems of dealing with Trump, is we're at the point now of completely psychologizing about what's going to work on somebody who has not demonstrated any consistency, which means you ultimately don't know what's going to work. And what I mean by not going to work, I mean in practice. Yes, we do know that when people kiss his ass, he laps it up. He loves it. He thinks it's wonderful. We do know that. But when it comes to action, it's a little bit more mixed than that, right? So you don't know what he's going to do. And what I personally think, and I understand that there's room for variations on opinion. If I'm dealing with somebody like that, I'm going to be straightforward, principled, honest. I'm not going to put on airs for such a person. Now, you might say if there were guarantees, but there's never that in life. The thing is with principles is you can't guarantee that a given principle is going to work in every situation, but we can guarantee that if you live an unprincipled way, you're going to end up fucked. And that's
agreed. Look, one of the accusations I constantly hurl at guys like Hazal Din and the American Communist Party is
there they go, those guys again.
Yeah, I got to bring them up. They are the worst second-handers in the world. All they care about is power and self-aggrandizement. They're not really for the people. They're not really for liberation, the language that they use to try to trap, now the middle class into believing their bullshit. So I have to agree with you that power lusters are the worst kinds of parasites. They're the worst kinds of second-handers. But I think Gary was making a distinction there that does merit, I think, some thought.
I think it does also, and he actually rephrased it.
Okay, good. So let me rephrase as a confident tyrant. That's nice. I like that. So that's sort of the way I think I took it anyway. So let's talk about Trump a little bit more, if we haven't already talked about the wannabe fascist. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm starting to get on the side that the left has been trumpeting for a while.
Does everybody just love Race's? I interrupted you, I know, because I just saw Race's thumbnail. Does everybody just love Race's thumbnails, the ones he makes? I find them awesome.
Thank you, Race. We love you for your thumbnails. We love you for your commentary here in the chat too. And also, folks, if you're new to this, don't forget to like and subscribe to this, and also don't forget to share it across your social media platforms. We want the voice of freedom out there. We are podcast free America. We are Make America Free Again, Make America Capitalist Again. We are the MACA unit of society out here. Trump says he's passing another executive order. Go figure. That's so unusual. He seems to be such a guy bound by the Constitution and really respecting the limits of executive power. So this is quite unusual for him to pass his thousandth executive order, targeting mail-in ballots, claiming, as course, as he's obsessed with the idea that these mail-in ballots and the extensions, of course, of accepting these mail-in ballots were completely corrupted. That mail-in balloting itself is a corrupt process, and this is one of the reasons he lost the election. The guy cannot let go of the fact that he lost the 2020 election legitimately, irrespective of how many media outlets, leftist or not, independent organizations, actually have audited the election process, independently audited these election processes, and found them to be no significant fraud. He nonetheless is seeking to impose this federal executive order over all of the states, essentially banning mail-in ballots. Now, I find this an egregious overstep of executive power, and so unusual for the Trump administration. What do you think of this? Because this drives me crazy. This is actually once again, in the face of the Constitution. Who has
elections? Yeah, the states do, but I think Congress can take some of the role back. I can't remember the exact language, but certainly it's not to be done through executive order, and certainly not with such idiocy as this. I'm going to look it up right now because he says everybody has stopped doing mail-in ballots, which I'm sure is not true. So
that's not true. I do have some of the research here. I just have to sort of look it up because I want to show that somewhere in the neighborhood of the corruption rate in mail-in ballots is somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.1%. So whatever is going on with mail-in ballots, there's a degree of redundancy in the security to figure out what's a fake ballot, what's a real ballot in there.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize. No, go ahead.
But I mean, there's a redundancy in the process whereby they can discover whether a ballot is fake, whether it's real, whether it represents a real person. So much so that the degree of fraud is extremely small. Certainly not enough to influence a national election. But what did you want to say? Because I have stats here that I could go into.
Okay. The countries, now Trump said everybody stopped doing it. The countries that allow for mail-in balloting: Canada, Germany, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Poland, South Korea, Switzerland, United Kingdom, Australia, Austria, and New Zealand. Countries with mail-in voting for specific groups: India, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Belgium, France, Italy. I lost it. Italy. I don't know. I lost the thing because there's so many of them, but Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Sri Lanka, Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, Czechia, Hungary, Ireland, Jersey, Slovenia, and Greenland. So, no, Mr. Trump, everybody has not stopped doing it. Yeah, it's just that's the thing, is he just always feels the need to lie.
I mean, the guy lies constantly. Persephone sent us something here. The International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA, an intergovernmental organization that works to protect democratic institutions, says that 34 countries allow postal voting, 12 of which allow for all voters, and 22 of which allow for some voters. So, of course, Trump is lying as usual. He's lying when he says that it is unusually corrupt. It is not unusually corrupt. 0.1% fraud is incredibly small, given the size of our country of almost 400 million people. To have that small a ratio of error and or corruption, that's an unbelievably tight system of voting that does not need to be messed with. On top of this lie, we have the constitutional fact that it is the states that are responsible for making their own particular voting laws and procedures, and it should remain with the states. That gives the states a certain amount of co-equal power with the federal government that I think is justifiable. Deeper with Diego says, where did Mike say principles don't work in every situation? Of course a principle works in every situation. Are you suggesting I should not be honest sometimes with reality? Wait, who said that? I mean, who said that here? Me?
I did. I said principles won't always work, and it's a simple enough thing. One principle is eat healthy and get exercise will extend your life. You could eat healthy and exercise and die of a heart attack. You could also get hit by a bus. Honesty is a principle in context. You're not going to be honest with a tyrant. You're not going to be honest with somebody that has a gun to your head.
Well, wait a minute. Now, doesn't that make Zelenskyy now interesting?
No. What I'm saying, it does make it interesting. What I'm saying is, what I mean by a tyrant is somebody that is at your door trying to rob you. Like if they say, "Where are your children?" You're not going to tell them. But all principles operate within context. I mean, you can't just say that the principle of being honesty is always going to work to your benefit all the time. That's simply not the case. Principles are contextual. So yes, they don't work in every occasion. There's a bunch that don't work on every occasion. There's no guarantees in this world. And that's part of the problem, that somebody will say to me, well, what about like David Friedman, the prudent predator, for instance, right? He says, if you have this prudent predator that can get away with his crimes. Well, the problem is that I know that stuff can't work in the long term, right? So it might work in an instance. So the principle of not initiating force, for instance, might work in that instance, but in the long run, the likelihood is it won't. Life has a lot to do with probability. We live by the principles that are most likely to lead to our flourishing and our success, but there's simply no guarantees that they will. It does, that's just life. That's just the way it goes.
I like that.
Ian Gilmore put it the way that I like. I think he put it better than I did. You can be honest and still get cheated. Principles are not a guarantee of results.
That is absolutely true, but they certainly stack the deck in your favor under normal circumstances.
Yes.
So
that is unequivocally true. And that is my point.
Why, folks? Because you're in sync with reality. And if you're in sync with reality, then you certainly stack the deck in your favor. But there are no guarantees. That's part of what scares people so much about liberty, because there are no guarantees that you do all the right things and you don't exactly achieve what you want to. That's possible. But taking control and centralizing control, robbing yourself of moral agency and handing it over to a bureaucrat doesn't improve your chances of survival. It certainly makes them probably worse. And if you're better off because of that, it's likely at somebody else's expense, which is not the kind of world that we want. We want a world where people exchange and trade with each other to mutual benefit. We don't want a zero-sum game universe where one person gains at the expense of another. That's not the way it works.
Ian Gilmore is on fire.
All actions have unknown outcomes, but principles give you the best chance of success. Ian, that is an awesome formulation. I love that. Yes. Can we steal it? I just want to know if we can steal it, put it up on our Instagram for the Capitalist Party. There's a couple of them here that I'd like to steal, put up there with a nice wrap.
And Deeper with Diego has got to get better voice to text messaging.
Hold on,
go ahead. Shrimp has no principles. I don't know what he's talking about. Ian Gilmore says we can use it. Go right ahead. Thank you very much, Ian. We will. Mark has disappeared once again, leaving me on my lonesome. And given that he's in charge of the queue of stories, it makes it a very difficult thing for me. But Ian, what about
Ian? Will be credited, of course, for his.
He will. By the way, speaking of the mail-in voting, the Newsmax story, Mark.
Yes, let me find the Newsmax story. What was it? Can you remind me of the Newsmax story?
They were sued by Dominion Voting Systems.
Ah, yes, Newsmax story was, and they settled for something like $60 something million because, of course, there was no fraud. Dominion won its case against Fox. And they won its case now against Newsmax, all the conservative outlets that were claiming that there was voter fraud through the Dominion voting machines have, of course, been in error. Not only in error, they passed on this bullshit propaganda for a long, long time. And Trump still continues to pass this propaganda along, despite the court cases, the evidence leveled against them, and all these losses, these tremendous monetary losses on the part of these news organizations, they still maintain the same fiction, folks, that the election was stolen. This guy is such a malignant narcissist. He can't get over the loss. He simply can't get over the loss. Hey, buddy, you get over here. So the Democrats are trying to institute MAGA-like aggression in their candidacy, and they're starting to look towards candidates or representatives of the Democratic Party that have that kind of hostile, trashy edge to them, as opposed to a principled candidate or what they would call a moderate. What do you think about this movement in the direction of sleaze? Certainly, the political discourse has really lowered. I mean, it was getting bad for decades, but Trump has just brought it right down to the bottom of the barrel.
So what it reminds me of is I was in prison with Michael Skakel. Michael Skakel was originally convicted of a murder here in Connecticut, and then he ended up getting out. I forget exactly why. I don't remember if he was proven innocent or what, but he was a Kennedy cousin, Michael Skakel. Bobby Kennedy actually went up to the prison to visit him. I didn't talk to him much, but a friend of mine used to go work out with him, and they got to talking about politics, and Michael told him he has no interest in politics. And the reason was because he went to work on Uncle Teddy's campaign. And what it was all about was how you can, be slick and say something in the right way to the right person to get the most voters, like they're hooking people up to machines and shit. And that's what this reminds me of. It has nothing to do with principle. Right? Nothing. It's all about how can we get our asses in power. We don't want the other guys in power. We want to be in power. Right?
So what do you think? So what do you think of a guy like Mandami, who doesn't do any of that stuff? He doesn't poll anybody. He's just a pure socialist. He says it unapologetically, and he's saying, look, stop apologizing for being who you are. Be this guy. AOC does the same thing. Bernie Sanders does the same thing, and they raise millions of dollars. It sort of speaks to what you were talking about, principle winning the day. They're just simply being the most consistent advocates of their altruist collectivist philosophy.
Perhaps, but nevertheless, I think Trump stumbled upon this accidentally, and this guy may have too, or it may be intentional on how to become popular quickly, how to get the masses in your favor, and the parties ultimately will cave. I don't think Trump started out saying, let me pinpoint this bullshit message and it'll bring everybody to me. I think it just happened. I think that Trump caught the wave with the stuff that he was saying and the way that he was saying it. At about that time, maybe a little bit before, Chris Christie was kind of popular, like the man who tells it like it is
He had that edge. He had that
right. And Trump kind of, caught that wave. And this Mandami may be doing the same thing by accident. It may be intentional. I do not know. What I do know is that this is what political parties do, is they're not concerned with principles. They're not concerned with actually enacting good policies. They're concerned with how can we manipulate the voters into putting us in office. And that's a big problem. And that's why there's such a need, by the way, for a real party of principle, Mark.
Yeah, and I think there is one that exists out there, a party of principle, unwavering principle, folks, in the face of the mob, in the face of pressure to conform. There's one nonconformist, individualistic party out there that will not bend to the mob. And what is that party? Do you know of it, Michael?
I do. The American Capitalist Party.
The American Capitalist Party. Go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, donate, and be a part of the change, folks. Let's bring principle back to politics. Like and subscribe to this station. Also, remember to share it across social media so that we can start to drown out the collectivist altruist axis out there and bring back individualism and make capitalism great again. So the icons for this leftist political movement are the Jasmine Crockett's of the world. If you listen to this woman talk, she's absolutely horrible on every level. The AOCs, the Bernie Sanders. I mean, these are people that just are demagogues, straight up demagogues. And I think it said somewhere in the article that I can't quite find right now that the whole onus of the Democratic Party right now is to find ways to touch the emotions of the of the constituencies. So literally, there's not a single aspect of that party that is thinking about touching your mind, your rational mind. It's all about, making you feel stuff. And so finding clever ways of making you feel stuff. And that's frightening, because on the right, we have the same thing. We have a president who governs by instinct. Folks, and which is why he's so chaotic. One minute his instinct tells him, we should have a ceasefire. The next minute his instinct tells him we shouldn't, based on whoever's talking to him 5 minutes before. And that's not what a president should be. That is not what a president should be.
No, it's not. But can you? I do though. We have that story about H.L. Mencken. So if we're going to be wrapping up, I definitely want to get to that story.
We are going to be wrapping up. Talk about H.L. Mencken a little bit, so that people who, I'm sure a lot of people in this chat know who H.L. Mencken was. Many of you might have read his stuff. I have a collected works of H.L. Mencken that I occasionally turn to when I want to feel sane, just like I do with Ayn Rand. I sometimes break out an essay when I want to feel sane, or I listen to your on Brooke. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. But H.L. Mencken was a great voice for liberty, and you want to talk about telling it like it was. This guy had a way with language, and I think we should actually read some of his quotes straight out about politics.
You should, but you also, when you're talking about what you listen to feel sane, you throw in the rational egoist.
I always throw that in at the very beginning, so I just assume people know that. But that's true. I listen to
people leave and new people join during the hour. This is YouTube. It goes through people's feeds, and someone new might catch it, and they hear you, and you're touting Aaron Brooke, not me.
I'm touting Aaron Brooke and Michael Liebowitz of the Rational Egoist.
All right.
So talk about H.L. Mencken for a second, because people need to know who he is. And they need to read his material as soon as possible. But we're going to get to a couple of his books.
H.L. Mencken, it was a reporter from Baltimore. I believe he wrote for the Baltimore Sun in the early part of the 20th century. He actually covered the Scopes monkey trial. And he is portrayed in the movie Inherit the Wind, which is a very good movie. The reporter in that movie is actually based on H.L. Mencken. And H.L. Mencken has two of my absolute favorite quotes. And I probably won't get them exact, but I'll get them good enough. One is that the urge to help humanity is usually a false face to try to rule it. And the other is every normal American at some point in his life has the desire to hoist up the black flag and start slitting throats, which I thought was an absolutely awesome quote because of the what's meant behind it. So Subby says Carlos is here. Subby, send Carlos up here and I'll put him on camera. Carlos is my friend.
Oh, Carlos. Oh, good. Because I was thinking there's another Carlos on social media that sometimes dogs me. Carlos the Marxist. I'm glad it's Carlos, your friend. Me like
No, Carlos the Marxist is not in my yard. No.
Okay, good.
That would be really weird, dude. Carlos Robolo is here. Carlos is a very
I thought you said he was entrepreneur. I thought you said he was in the feed.
No, he's here. Okay, yes, Rebolo, not Rebello. Rubella is a disease. Rebello maybe, but no, Rebolo race. Yes, he's.
So we only have a couple of minutes. So I just wanted to.
We have like 7.
We have 7 minutes, but I wanted to find a really good quote in here, from H.L. Mencken, because this article, which I think you should post if you already haven't posted it on Twitter.
I did post it.
Okay, good. Is filled with a billion quotes, and it's a matter of just sort of choosing one that is, amazing.
Okay, I'll start with one.
Okay, go ahead.
What is a political campaign save a concerted effort to turn out a set of politicians who were admittedly bad and put in a set who are thought to be better? The former assumption, I believe, is always sound. The latter just is certainly false. For if experience teaches us anything at all, it teaches us this, that a good politician under democracy is quite as unthinkable as an honest burglar. My dogs are going sick because Carlos is here.
That is a great.
I am actually going to take down my green screen so that we can see Carlos here. Carlos, hop in.
What's going on?
Here's Carlos Rebolo.
What's up, man?
Tell him where you're going, dude. Say something. Make yourself useful.
So I am on
No,
my
you
way.
don't tip it. You talk right here.
Oh, all right, all right. I am on my way to Puerto Rico for the second time this year.
All right, man. Happy
He
travels.
does his own hair. Isn't his hair pretty?
We're gonna
You
get.
guys
We're
are
gonna
talking
get.
about important matters. He wants to mention the hair.
Well,
You're gonna
people here, some of them think that I only break Mark's balls. Can you maybe disillusion the folks about my ball breaking credentials?
Yeah, they're top notch.
Lee says you're so pretty. Listen, let me tell you something. The men in prison used to say the same thing.
Yeah, at least now it's a compliment.
All right, I'm gonna have to use your car while you're gone. Okay, let me finish the show.
All right.
Thanks, Carlos. Good to see you, man.
Mark says thank you and good to see you.
I want to just end this with, before you give the capitalist thought of the day, with one more quote from from Mencken. Is government then useful and necessary? So is a doctor. But suppose the doctor, the dear fellow, claimed the right every time he was called in to prescribe for a bellyache or a ringing in the ears to raid the family silver, use the family toothbrushes, and execute the droit de seigneur. Is that how you pronounce it? Droit de seigneur upon the
You're
household.
French, dude. I don't know.
Well, the right to take.
You speak French. I don't.
The right to take. It was, I guess, a nobleman's right to take the wife on a wedding night of the serf, or the one that.
What do you mean by take?
Have sex with her, bed her. If you watch Braveheart, it became an issue because the English nobleman claimed the right to be able to bed this Scottish women any
bed. I like that. Now all of a sudden we're getting proper with our talk. He's going to bed her. Okay.
Yes, he's going to bed her. So anyway,
do.
Folks, if you got to read this article just to get a few quotes from the great man himself, and then probably if you can get a collected works or some other piece by him, you'll be better off for it. Just like you'd be better off for watching The Rational Egoist or any number of objectivists out there who are really the new counterculture, folks, the counterculture of reason. So go ahead, you bring us in with the quote of the day. I will hold Frankie up for people to see as a visual.
It's the capitalist thought of the day. It's not the quote of the day.
Capitalist thought of the day. Go ahead.
Okay. The capitalist thought of the day is going to have to do with my friend, Carlos Rebolo. Carlos Rebolo, at 15 years old, was sentenced to 45 years in prison. And not for a murder crime. So it was a very extreme sentence for a 15-year-old. By all intents and purposes, anybody looking at Carlos at that point would have said his life is a wash. Carlos worked hard in prison, got an education, and learned how to braid hair. From that, he ended up getting released early. He first went to work at a hair salon, and he now owns his own hair braiding company called Freedom Braids. He has employees now. He's doing very well. He's a motivational speaker. He's taken several vacations. The point I want to make is that if somebody that went to prison at 15 years old was sentenced to 45 years, was able to learn a skill, improve his character, get out of prison, and make himself an entrepreneurial success, there's very little reason or very little excuse that any of us cannot also be entrepreneurial successes. But we can only be entrepreneurial successes in a free market. Now, obviously, America is not the perfect free market, but it's still relatively free. I mean, we do complain a lot about regulations and printing money and things of that nature, but we still can start businesses and we still can make successes of our lives. Don't let obstacles be an excuse for you. Be like Carlos and make yourself a success. Go ahead, Mark. Take us out.
What a great inspirational story. I got to say, both you and Carlos, in my opinion, represent the American dream. You guys started somewhere, and you are completely self-made men, which is, I think, the ideal. And every American out there should take stories like yours and Carlos's and use it as an inspiration to move forward. And I also have to say, my jiu-jitsu teacher, Jean-Jacques Machado, who's a Hall of Fame jiu-jitsu practitioner, has one hand, folks. He was born with a physical deformity. It took 4 months went by before I realized he only had one hand, because he's so brilliant at jiu-jitsu. He never let that stop him. And when he talks about his his physical disability. He never talks about it as a disability. It was an inspiration for him to be even better and more technical than anybody else out there. And that's why he became the best there is in the world. And I love people like that. Michael, you and Carlos, you guys represent the American dream to me. So folks, you have 23 hours to think about the American dream. What is that potential? What potential can you achieve? This isn't hustle culture. This is just about being the best person you can be. And capitalism is a system that helps bring out the best person you can be because it allows you the freedom to realize your potential. So think on that, folks. If your premises are different than that, start working on checking them. And we will see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we will we'll talk about new news issues and probably argue about them, and it'll be fun, loads of fun for all of us. Objectivism contributed greatly to Carlos's success.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and we're gonna talk about more of that when Michael and I start our podcast, which will be in the next couple of weeks, about the intersection of philosophy and psychology and how important philosophy is for helping you mentally. So stay tuned for that, folks. It's coming soon. Until that time, guys, we'll see you later. Peace.